right, good morning, Algebra B students. This is going to be your review for the Get Ready for Chapter 5. Notice you have to take these notes. I want you guys to write out the titles. I want you guys to make sure that you have the date on here as well. So we are going to do part 1. We're going to use in parts. I believe there are 6 parts to this lesson. So the very first part we're going to go down to vocabulary memory lane on here. So our first one is the solution of a two-variable equation. And it is an order pair, x, y, that makes a two-variable equation true. So remember, a solution is anything that is a true statement. If it doesn't make a true statement, then it is not a solution. So it is anything that makes a true statement. Okay. Next up is an example of it. So we have 3x plus 4y equals 11. And we're seeing if the order pair 1, 2 is a solution to 3x plus 4y equals 11. I know that it is a solution because I can plug it in. Remember that 1 is x and 2 is y, because in an order pair, x always comes first. So all we have to do is we plug in 1 for x, we evaluate it, we plug in 2 for y, and we solve. And we get 3 times 1 is 3, 4 times 2 is 8, and then 3 plus 8 does equal 11. So that is a true statement, and therefore it is a solution. And this is exactly how I expect you guys to do your homework. I think you guys have like 2 or 3 questions on your homework about this. You need to write this out exactly how I have it. You need to plug in the x and y, and then you need to show me your steps in solving it, and then you need to show me a statement. And we're going to do more examples of this later on in the video. Okay, our next vocabulary term is rate. So let's look at this. A rate. It compares 2 different quantities. A rate compares 2 different quantities. And I apologize for the video right now. So a rate compares 2 different quantities. What is a quantity? A quantity is anything that can be counted or measured. So the number of students is a quantity, because I can count the number of students. The temperature is a quantity because we can measure the temperature outside. A unit rate is a special rate. It is a rate with a denominator of 1. Some of you guys may not remember what the denominator means, and that's okay. And we talked about quantity just a second ago. So remember that a quantity is anything that can be counted or measured. Example, temperature and the number of students. And there's tons of examples. The number of chairs in a classroom can be counted. How fast a car is going can be measured. And you also need to remember that a denominator is the bottom of a fraction. That's important to remember because a unit rate has a denominator of 1. So the bottom of the fraction has to be 1 in order to be a unit rate. So here's a fraction. The numerator is the top. The bottom of it is the denominator. Remember that denominator is like dungeon. It's on the bottom. And also remember, too, that this right here is a division bar. So it means to divide. Okay? Another term that you guys need to be familiar with is function. Function is every x value has exactly 1 y value. That's really important. For it to be a function, every x value has to have exactly 1 y value. Okay? So, x value. X value is the domain. It's the independent variable and it is also the input. If I'm plugging a variable into a function for x, that is the input. It's what I am putting into it. The y value is the range. It is the dependent variable. It is the output. It is what it's coming out. And we're going to get into some examples later on. So if you guys at all need to pause this video to write down these terms, which you need to have in your notes, please do so. Okay, independent and dependent variables was terms in chapter 4, so I really want to go over them again. Those of you guys who have science class will get into that a lot with Butler and Brooke especially. So independent variable, we call it the IDV just for short, kind of short way of doing it, of handwriting. It is something that I have control over. It is the input, it is the x value, it is the domain. If I'm talking about an independent variable, I'm talking about something that I have control over. I control this, okay? Dependent variable, we call it the DV. It depends on the input. It depends on the independent variable. It is the output, it is the y values, and it is the range. So if I'm talking about dependent variables, those values are going to be the y values, they're going to be the range, and it's what's coming out of the situation, okay? So examples of this is this. I have control over the number of pizzas I buy. Therefore, that is independent variable because I control it. If I go into Pizza Hut, I can buy 10 pizzas, I can buy 5 pizzas, I can buy 1 pizza. I have control over that. The cost depends on the number of pizzas. Therefore, the cost is the dependent variable because the cost is going to be what comes out. It is the output of the situation. I'm taking in pizza. What's leaving? Money. Money is coming out of my pocket. It is the output. It is the dependent. It is the y values. It is also the range. Okay? So another example is temperature. The temperature depends on the time of day. Temperature is the dependent variable. Why? Because I can control the time I check the temperature. If it's 8 o'clock in the morning, it's usually cooler outside, right? If it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it's usually warmer. So the temperature depends on the time of day. And I have control over checking when I check the temperature. Okay, so again, I have control over time. Therefore, it's the independent variable. And temperature is the dependent variable because temperature depends on the time. So you tell me what is the case in this situation. You tell me what is the case in this situation. If I had the situation, time spent studying and grade on test, what is the independent variable? What is the dependent variable? So think about that. Pause the video if you need to and think about it. What do you have control over? And what is ultimately the outcome of it? All right, so assuming that you had paused it and actually thought about it and did it, you would have realized, hopefully, that independent variable is the time. I can control the amount of time I spend studying for the test. And my grade depends on the amount of time I spend studying. If I study 4 hours, I'm more likely to do well on the test, as opposed to if I spend 1 hour studying or 30 minutes studying, or in some cases, a minute studying for the test. Okay? So other terms that you need to know is an arithmetic sequence. Arithmetic sequence was towards the end of the school year for you guys last year. It may not have been really hit very hard, but we are going to be doing a lot of that when it comes to functions in this chapter. An arithmetic sequence is a sequence of numbers that is formed by adding a fixed number. Notice I didn't say multiplying or dividing. I said adding. And when I mean by adding too, don't I really mean subtraction as well? Because isn't -6, subtracting 6, the same thing as saying adding -6? Yeah. So -6, so subtracting or adding. So I could have a sequence that can be, adding 4 each time. I can have a sequence that is subtracting 6 each time, or in other words, adding -6 each time to the previous term. The fixed number is known as the common difference. This formula right here, this is a function. It is the function of arithmetic sequences. This says that a of n equals a of 1 plus n minus 1 times d. Now it's important to realize what these variables mean. A of n really just is a fancy way of saying y, isn't it? Because anytime we say a function, we can say f of x or whatever the case may be, and that's really y. A of 1 is going to be our first term. N is the term that we're trying to find. So let's say I'm trying to find the 100th term. I can plug in 100 for n. And then d is our common difference. Remember, in order to be a common difference, it has to be something that is being added or subtracted. So it could be a +4, it could be a -6, but it cannot be anything that is multiplied. So if I had a sequence of numbers that is like 2, 4, 6, or 2, 4, 6, 8, well, actually that could be adding as well. Let's say I had 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000. Those are all being multiplied by 10, right? So that would not be an arithmetic sequence. So therefore, this could not happen. So for an example, if I have the situation of 2, 6, 10, 14, 18, 22, and I want to find the 100th term, the first thing I need to realize is that 2 is my first term, 100 is going to be my n, because that's the term I want to find. And then I need to realize what is happening here. Well, 2 plus 4 equals 6. 4 plus 10 equals 4 plus 6 equals 10. 10 plus 4 equals 14. 14 plus 4 equals 18. 18 plus 4 equals 22. Therefore, 4 is going to be my common difference. And then I'm just going to plug them into the function, and then I'm going to solve. So a of n equals a of 1 plus n minus 1 times d. So the quantity of n are the sum of n and minus 1. That works. So I can say a of 100 equals 2 plus 100 minus 1 times 4. And then I can solve from there. Well, 100 minus 1 equals 99. 99 times 4 equals 396. Plus 2 is 398. So in the sequence, the 100th term is going to be 398. All right, so that concludes part 1 of our lesson.